Hey everyone, welcome to Tech Talks by Gaurav Sharma. Today we have a very special guest joining us today, who, by the way, needs no introduction. He is distinguished engineer with Cisco. He has written over seven cybersecurity books, filed more than 10 patents, and has just been awesome mentor and friend for me for the last many years. Presenting Aaron Woland. Drum roll, everyone. All right.
Oh,
Let me
at
bring
least I know
Aaron to
you're
the
you're a
stage.
comedian.
Hey, Aaron. Thanks for joining us today, man. Hey, how are you?
I'm doing all right. I'm enjoying this fine weather. And yourself?
Yeah. Yeah, the weather is same here too, man. Can't complain. It's getting cooler. So, man, thanks for your time today. I was trying to book this time on your calendar and I saw you are busy. You are very busy. So we want to know what's up? What are you busy with these days? What's the top of mind that you're working with?
Yeah. The things that are keeping me up at night, or the things that are keeping me busy, are trying to solve a couple of different problems that our customers face. One of those problems is, identifying which endpoint between which each system, so we can do proper integrations. So this is not unique to Cisco. The problem is not unique to Cisco. I think the solutions are. The problems that you typically will run into is, um, when you start thinking about security solutions, and you think EDR, network analytics tools, network controllers, firewalls, you know, everything under the sun, right? VPN, SASE, whatever it might be. Oftentimes they have different agents, and those agents, or even if they don't use an agent at all, like ICE doesn't have to use an agent in any way, shape, or form, or network flow analytics doesn't necessarily have to use an agent. Secure network analytics is what we call our solution there. It used to be called Stealth Watch. Um, then so we Anyway, the problem that you will run into if you're using a SIM like Splunk or something else, or if you're using a SOAR product like Phantom or Demisto, or heck, you're just using the XDR, which is Cisco's SecureX XDR, that has all those capabilities kind of built into it for the investigations and then the responses, and orchestrated responses, to the investigations. What you find is that every single system looks at an endpoint differently, meaning ICE may be using MAC address as the key identifier for an endpoint, which is a horrible thing to use in today's world, because OS vendors don't listen to the networking giant when they say don't randomize MAC addresses. You're going to cause a problem in the enterprise, and then your default to randomizing MAC addresses in Windows and Mac and Android and iOS and so on. But also, the MAC address is not necessarily attached to the device anymore, right? So I look at the system I'm talking to you on now. I'm connected through a pluggable dock, right? That dock, right, has, or you have something like this, right, which is a dongle, which, this has the MAC address. So when I unplug from my docking station this MacBook Pro that I'm using right now, and I plug in this Surface Book that's sitting over here, or that Lenovo ThinkPad over there, right, they all of a sudden take on that same MAC address. So now my Mac OS system, right, which had this MAC address, right, is now a Windows box with completely different hardware. It's a completely different system, right? You can't use and rely on things like MAC address at all anymore.
Yeah, it's
So,
I feel like and that's I think that's the biggest problem here because you can protect your network all you want, you can protect your cloud all you want, but if you're leaving out these endpoints, and these are essentially for the most cases are the entry point for any malware or any kind of these things to come into the environment. So that makes total sense. So so we're trying to have like a sort of like a unified client so that it talks to every,
we
it
are.
understands and it's kind of like it talks to every solution. So like, what's the vision? Like, I understand there's like agent is a big dependency on a lot of like these solutions, which becomes very hard to like manage and control. So like, what's the vision that we are working towards, like from a Cisco's perspective?
This is a great question. I'm going to show you there's two things we're doing to solve that problem. One of them is the unified agent. The other is something called device insights, which is just a feature name for something that's in SecureX. Right? The but to add on a little bit to what you said, it may not just necessarily be the malware, but remember, it's the endpoints on the system that are what are accessing the applications that you put in the cloud. It's the endpoints that are the interface between the human and the data ultimately, right? The human to the application, which is talking to the application server, which has access to the data, or similar fashions, right? So knowing who this endpoint is and being able to take action is critical. And being able to uniquely and correctly identify that endpoint between disparate systems. Otherwise, your investigations in your SIM will come back as, it could be one of these 17 endpoints that was part of this, right? Because they all had 192.168.0.10 as their IP address because everyone's working from home. Or it could be that your SOAR and the actions that you're taking in that response tool are going to fail. So because, hey, the endpoint doesn't exist. But let's talk about the unified agent, because I do spend a lot of my time lately reviewing this. I'm going to share a slide, and then I'll probably just switch to some live things here for us. But from a slide perspective, and let me move that out of the way, right? Or the thing to understand about our unified agent that we call it, it's called Cisco Secure Client, and you can thank our branding team for that one. Not to be confused with Cisco Secure Endpoint, which is this module down here. That's the EDR solution that has all of our advanced search capabilities with what we used to call Orbital. It has our EDR capabilities, right? All our advanced protections and detections and all that are in that. And it used to be a very separate agent with a UI that looked like, well, to be fair, it would look like bad freeware, right? And that was the analogy used by one of our big leaders when he first joined Cisco. He said, "This UI looks like it's bad freeware. We have to change that." And it's true. It didn't look very nice, and the UI wasn't very functional. And we've unified not just the UI, and I want to talk a lot about this because just putting it into a single UI is one thing. It's not a lot of benefit there. There's a lot of benefit to having a unified agent, though. And so, if you think about it, we actually built this on top of AnyConnect, right? So Cisco AnyConnect has been rebranded now to Cisco Secure Client. Thank you, branding. But AnyConnect, hopefully anyone listening to this knows AnyConnect and knows it's on about 200 million endpoints worldwide. And AnyConnect is an incredibly powerful agent. So one of the things that's so powerful about that agent, which is now known as Cisco Secure Client, is it has a stream level interceptor built in, right? This is how it does what it does. So even if you think of it back to its roots when it was just VPN, when it first came out, about when I was running around the world trying to avoid the dinosaurs that were trying to stomp me. Even back then, we had a stream level interceptor to be able to detect the traffic coming down the network stack on its way into the network, and then be able to determine whether or not we should encrypt and send that traffic somewhere to like the other side of an encrypted tunnel.
So
that stream, yeah, hit it. Yeah, question.
No, yeah, This is awesome. I'm just looking at the layout of this client. So it means like, tell me if it makes sense. Like from a SecureX standpoint, how we're trying to bring all the solutions together into one dashboard. Cisco Secure Client is trying to bring all the clients into one client as part of like different modules in it. So if customer has umbrella, and endpoint and ICE and all, and for endpoint, they can have just one client, and be that can actually do all the work instead of having them deploy all these different clients. And if they don't have it, like if the customer is only using Umbrella, they will only enable that specific module to for it to work with the Umbrella, correct?
That's absolutely right. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
amazing.
So it's there's a lot of benefit to that. So many of these need some of the same levels of technology and need to use the same libraries. So if you load up two separate clients, let's say for Umbrella and VPN even, right? You're going to end up with either duplicating the amount of memory that we've got to leverage by loading these libraries into memory twice or three times, however many modules you have, or you're going to run into conflictions, which is even worse, right? When you're both trying to leverage the same DLL or something, and you get a conflict because you can't load this because it's already loaded by the other module and so on, the other agent. So we get to avoid a lot of that by unifying this into a single agent with a single control point for installation and configuration pushing, which we'll get to that in a minute. But it makes life a lot easier for our customers. Now, to use your reference that you mentioned, you talked about SecureX being where we're bringing the services together up in the cloud, right? And that's ultimately what it does. And it is our XDR, but it's also a cloud platform. So G2 Patel, our GM, was at RSA this year talking about the Cisco Secure Cloud that was going to be in, this is what that is, right? It is where everything is coming together and we can integrate things one place. We're talking to each other properly on the back end. We're identifying the correct systems between our integrated systems, and we're talking third parties and Cisco on Cisco. So it's important.
Yeah. No, I feel like
secure.
over the last. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, it's all right. Secure client is the platform on the endpoint. That's a way to look at it. It's a modular client with super powerful core features built into it, right? Things like that stream level interceptor that we talked about, trusted network detection, which is going to be used for the enabling and disabling of specific settings in host-based firewalls in the future of secure endpoint, which I believe is public. If not, people just heard something they shouldn't. It allows us to have a lot of this really powerful core functionality and share it, but make these other modules possible, like the Umbrella module. So as traffic comes down the stack, we're able to examine that traffic. This is DNS traffic. Is it part of the defined internal domains, like in our case, maybe Cisco.com, Duo.com, who else do we own? OpenDNS.com, right? And so on, right? So Kenna.com are these internal domains. If they are, let the traffic flow down the rest of the stack and get onto the wire or wireless, right? Maybe the RF, unmolested, right? Don't touch it whatsoever. Let it go out. It's going to hit the DHCP assigned DNS servers and get name res that way. But what if it's not an internal domain? It's not in that list of the domains that Cisco owns. In that case, we're going to inject some identity information, right? And we're going to encrypt the entire thing in an eDNS packet, and we're going to ship the encrypted DNS packet off to the Umbrella resolvers in the cloud to have the policy assigned to it. And all that's happening based on that stream level interceptor capability that we have.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing allows us to do it with web traffic and ship it off to the proxy in the cloud. Right?
This is awesome. I mean, I feel like over the last few years, or like over the last decade, we have security has grown so much that we have internet security, network security, so many security, and it has become so complicated. But now all the innovations, as I'm seeing around, is about simplifying stuff, automating stuff, so that all the complexity that we have created, we want to make sure that it is easily consumable for our users and customers. So this total makes sense. So and talk to me more about like the device insight piece that you were talking about. Like, how does that fit into everything? Like, so this is one client. that
Yeah.
unified client, any solution that you use, all you got to do is just install this one client, and based on all the different solutions that you're using, you're going to be enabling the modules in those. And I think that's very powerful when you think about from a perspective of like simplifying stuff. So I've heard about device insights, and like um, I was checking that out the other day in SecureX as well. So I'm like, yeah, if you could just talk to us more about like why do we
So
need that? Yeah, and
absolutely. So let me
yeah,
let me go ahead and share one more slide, and then I want to go bring you into somewhere. I want to bring you into like a live environment.
yeah,
Um, so the device insights, or we just call it SXDI here, right? For SecureX Device Insights. Um, so device insights itself is taking the integrated systems that we have into our XDR, into our platform called SecureX. It's taking a select set of them right now, and we're expanding this rapidly as actively as we're talking right now. But we take, what is the Meraki view of the endpoint? What is the Microsoft Intune? What is their inventory and their view of the endpoint? What does Jamf Pro know about all the Mac OS and iOS that it's managing, or Mobile Iron or AirWatch? We also have Secure Client in here, of course, right? Our unified agent, as well as Secure Endpoint by itself, and Umbrella as well. And we're able to say, okay, based on all of these different attributes, right, we know this is the same endpoint traversing through Umbrella's environment as this endpoint that's connected through Duo, right? Because you'll see Duo Access and Duo Beyond in the list here. Right, so this same endpoint that just did this browser-based SAML authentication against, a web-based app, right, that just went through Duo. Now we can tell you that's the same endpoint as this one that's over here going through, Umbrella, either through our new DNS piece or through our what's called Secure Connect. Or Cisco Plus Secure Connect, I think they call it. When we launched it, it was called Now. They removed the Now from it. It's had a different name every 15 seconds. I can't keep up. I think it's now just called Secure Connect.
oh
And
yeah,
yeah, so
that's awesome. I mean,
and
I struggle with that. So this kind of goes back to your same point where you mentioned like a dongle, like the MAC address that's coming in, could not, like, it could be just the dongle's MAC address and not necessarily the endpoint that's coming in. But with this device
right,
insight, it's gonna give us the visibility into what kind of endpoints are coming to, and like verified from different solutions, like umbrella side come through,
yeah.
secure endpoint side. So it makes the most sense. Yeah, absolutely.
Let's actually, and then we can go way beyond that with Secure Endpoint. So I'm sorry, Secure Client. So let's actually just take a look real quick, and we can. I think it's easier to view it visibly. Let me go
And
on expand these charts so we can see it.
and today this is free, right? This is a Cisco security customers. They're not being charged for it. I'm just talking about today. It's this
It
visibility.
is I think the official term is licensed at no charge.
I
Because if
love
you
that.
some kind of, and this is weird, but I think it's some kind of legalese that if you just say free,
Mhm.
we can't provide support for it properly or things like that. So in order to be specific, if you purchase one of the Cisco integration products that integrate with this, and I'll so if we look at the ones in this Cisco bucket here, so Cisco Secure Endpoint or Tenna or Orbital or Secure Cloud Analytics, or these products that you can use here, those, when you integrate them, it actually will then enable SecureX for you because you've proven entitlement. And
Yeah.
what that means is if you purchase a Cisco security product, you are entitled to SecureX in its current instantiation and all of its features. And its features include, an incident manager. It includes, like the unified dashboard capability where I can see from my integrated sources, like,
It's awesome.
what are the important things from those sources, and that's a very important thing to understand. This is not a SIM, right? We're not a data lake necessarily either. We're not just collecting logs and then generating reports based on those logs. These literally get sent to us through an API that says, the secure endpoint team has deemed that the MITRE attack tactics that we detected is an important thing to display on the dashboard. Here's that information streaming to your dashboard now from that integrated product through that integration that we have. And the same thing with Orbital and Secure Client and Umbrella and so on and so forth, right? And you can see some of them here in my own little dashboard.
Yeah,
Right.
I love it. I mean, so this is basically like a one-stop shop for any security administrator. I don't have to jump into 10 different products. If I were to like see what's going on in my network, I could just come to SecureX and have a good look of what's like an overall activity of what's going on in my network. And if I need to kind of dig into something specific, I could always go to that ribbon and cross launch into the actual solution. So that's awesome.
We also built into SecureX have a full-blown orchestration product. All right. I don't want to sit here and say call it a SOAR, where technically it does what a SOAR does. It actually can do so much more.
Yeah.
This thing is incredibly powerful. We also have pre-built workflows, pre-built atomics, which you drag into workflows to say, here's something we've already coded up. You're just going to drag this coded snippet into your workflow. But that's not exactly what we want to focus on today. I just want to point that out. The other feature that got added to SecureX, which again, licensed at no charge, you're entitled to it by owning the other products, right, is Device Insights. And so what Device Insights is doing is taking those important sources, and let's go look at some of those sources. The ones where we've already QA'd the heck out of this. We know that we're not going to be providing like false linkages to the best of our ability. Forgive my lab here. It might take it a second, but it's going to start bringing up lots of little details about these, right? So we integrate with things like Secure Endpoint. You can do your own CSV imports. Umbrella is there. Meraki Systems Manager, Secure Client, VMware's Workspace ONE, aka AirWatch, right? Duo, as we already mentioned, Intune, Mobile Iron, Jamf Pro, right? All of these things become sources, and we look at their inventory and say, what do they know about endpoints in this environment? And we can create this merged, unified endpoint view, right? And I'm actually going to pick on one of my favorite ones here. We'll just do this. We'll filter based on a source. We're going to filter based on an operating system. I'm going to hide these charts because I like to have more real estate on my screen. Right? And you can also do free text searches for any field, right? So I can look up anything that has the word surface in it. And so you get this unified inventory from all of these integrated systems that is quickly searchable, that provides you with this table view as well as a detailed view. And I'm going to go into some better information about that. But like I can see that this Surface Pro 4, which happens to be sitting right here, that little Surface Pro 4 in my lab, right? I can see, it's been seen in this instance of Umbrella, this instance of Meraki Systems Manager. It's in Secure Client, Secure Endpoint, Orbital, and Duo. I also see that it's got a compromise, and I can drill into it a little bit further and say, what is going on with this endpoint? And the information displayed on this page is a subset of the information that we have about the endpoint that we can, depending on what sources you integrate. We just try to display what's useful, like a summary of what does the Windows Security Center say about the security on that endpoint? Everything's enabled. Automatic updates is enabled, right? User account controls is in good shape. We see that the Windows firewall is enabled and Cisco Secure Endpoint is enabled. And we see that Microsoft Defender is there because you can never get rid of it, but that it is disabled. We see here also, though, look, Cisco Secure Endpoint is my registered AV, and Windows API returns that it is enabled and up to date. But my cloud over on the AMP side says that's not true. My last definition push update failed, and it could be because this endpoint is off. Make sure it's on. It could be a number of reasons why that failure could have occurred. But I can see that my more up-to-date information beyond Windows is that the cloud says, it doesn't have the latest AV taps, right? So our AV we call Tetra. It's within Cisco Secure Endpoint. I see that it is not isolated according to the endpoint, right? I see that Orbital is on. The endpoint has a compromise. I can click here. It'll take me to device trajectory in the AMP Secure Endpoint portal and so on. But then I also start saying, okay, what other information do I have from other sources? Like, what tags does the MDM report back? Does the MDM report back that it's compliant or not? What is the serial number? I'm collecting all of this as attributes on this endpoint. So this endpoint data grows, okay? And based on those attributes, I'm able to find ones that work with Umbrella and Duo, and then Duo and Meraki, and then, Duo and Cisco Secure Endpoint, and so on and so forth, to be able to do these merges with extreme confidence that this is a real endpoint, right? And it's the same one that's showing up, even though in Duo, it's identified by something called an EP key. In Umbrella, it's identified by something called an origin ID. In Secure Endpoint, it's identified by the AMP GUID. And in Secure Client, it's identified by what's now known as the Unified Identity, or the UID, which is right here, and we'll talk about that too.
Yeah, I mean, this blows my mind because I feel like one of the biggest challenge with security today is visibility. That people are not able to figure out what's in their network, and if like how we've brought all the solutions together in the SecureX from a solution standpoint, and now we're bringing all the endpoints also within SecureX. This becomes so powerful, and I know I have not seen any product like this in the market today. Is what, like, Cisco is being proactive at what they're doing right now to make sure that while we have such a huge portfolio, but we have these solutions to make it seamless and efficient for all our customers. So I love it. This is amazing.
So it's not just that visibility. The visibility is critical, but then to show you the power of it in use, I may have to sign back in. I do. Okay, hang on one second. I let my my authorization expire there for single sign-on. Hang on. We can always cut this part.
Yeah, I'll need your help with that.
No worries.
We'll just keep it
simple to do. That's simple to do. All right. You can even leave it in, and just your audience will just know we're human. All right.
Yeah, yeah. That's the whole point. It's just chit-chatting about what's latest and greatest. That's it.
Yeah. And then there we go. Accept. Boom. Okay. So as I go to investigate this, I may have to relaunch. Let's see if it took it. Based on my login, it might be. Oh, it did.
It did. Yeah.
So I'm going to let this investigation run. But what you're going to see is that there were targets that were identified based on this investigation. And that target is going to go through what we call asset resolution. See? And it's eventually going to come down and say, oh, even though I had all these different systems that saw a different endpoint in their own system, we're going to display the unified endpoint as an asset in the middle of this investigation. So a lot of the incident responders that that we worked with in designing a lot of this stuff, they have to do all this themselves. And with every investigation, try to unify all of this data. Some customers had really powerful macros written and stuff to import devices and stuff into Excel from APIs. I mean, it's just what people have done is just absolutely amazing. And that we've been able to replace that with a product that we're not even charging for, right? We don't charge for, we don't charge for this if you already have our other security products today, right? So what you'll see is that inside of your investigation, which it's still running, it's still doing its dispositions. Inside of this investigation, you're going to start to see all of that data that we were showing, all the important data that we were showing in device insights right in the investigation itself, right? And so, as I click on an asset, I'm able to then identify, right, what that asset looked like. Was it meeting my security requirements? Was I really vulnerable to whatever this attack might have been? And I get a lot of that information. I could pivot right back to the view in device insights, but there's no necessary need to. Now, on top of that, though, what I really want to focus on in our last couple of minutes is what we're doing with the secure client, because that's how we all started this conversation, right? So if we take a look at what we've been doing in secure client, and we've just released it, right? It's just out the door. We're going to slowly see some of the things I'm talking about gain in adoption within the actual security products. But let's examine this for a minute. Anything in blue existed already. Anything in green is new. Okay. Remember, Cisco Secure Client is AnyConnect version 5. We've rebranded it. We've merged in Secure Endpoint into it. Okay. And we have created a new cloud management platform inside of SecureX that I'll call in this diagram the CSC subsystem, or Cisco Secure Client subsystem of SecureX. That cloud management module is that brand new module. It was never in AnyConnect. It didn't exist in AMP for Endpoints, aka Secure Endpoint, right? And it has two components within that module. One is the package manager that takes the manifest from the cloud where we do all the configuration now. No longer do you have to use those standalone Java-based apps on a Windows device. It's in the cloud. It's in SecureX. And it can get better every 2 weeks because we release SecureX every 2 weeks. So as we start to make incremental UI improvements, or let's modernize this, let's reorder things, and now that we can gain insight into who's using which fields, or how many customers using which fields, it's all kind of anonymized. Not kind of, it's all very anonymized. We're able to then say, okay, the most common fields are X, Y, and Z. Let's move them in the UI, and we can release things like that every 2 weeks.
Following the agile model, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's beautiful. I love cloud development for that reason. It doesn't require any changes to the client. You're just doing it in the cloud there.
Yeah.
So then that package manager takes that manifest from the cloud and says, oh, you're supposed to upgrade this module to this version. I'm supposed to install this new module that wasn't there before. We won't focus a whole lot on that right now. That's kind of easy to understand, I think. What's really unique is this unified identity module. So, we acquired Duo. Duo had its own way of generating a unique identity for an endpoint. Remember I said inside of Duo's backend, they call it an EP key. AnyConnect had its own unique identifier that it would generate locally on the endpoint. AMP for Endpoints, aka Secure Endpoint, right, has its own GUID that it automatically generates based on information from the system. Again, everyone's doing something different. If you uninstall and reinstall, on AnyConnect, you're guaranteed to get a new GUID. On Cisco Secure Endpoint, it all depends on what you did with the checkbox when you uninstalled. Did you tell them you were going to reinstall or not? If you told them you're going to reinstall, then it maintains that identity, so the next time it registers to the cloud after you've reinstalled, it kept the same identity. This is a bad way to do identity, ultimately, is what we determined. There's workarounds with identity persistence on virtual desktops. There's all sorts of stuff we run into on the Secure Endpoint side. So what we've done instead is we collect those attributes from that UID module. We ship them off to the cloud, which is then generating an immutable identity. it generates that identity for that endpoint and issues it back down. And in future versions, we'll be storing that identity in secure enclaves like TPM chips and so on.
And
But
so
it's a
is
unique
that
identity, guaranteed globally unique. Go ahead. Laura.
is that what enables the device insights also, that we're able to see all these devices coming? Okay, that makes sense. Perfect.
It can. We don't need Secure Client to make Device Insights work. This is a step above Device Insights. So one of the ways to think about Device Insights, it's for everything we integrate with, third parties and not. This
Right.
is just for your managed endpoints that have your Cisco Security Client installed on them. But in
Perfect.
your environment now, when you're traversing Umbrella, or you're using NVM to send data to the flow collector, or you're traversing the zero trust networking of our SASE offer in Secure Connect, right? Or any of these things, we can be sure we're using the same identity for all of these endpoints everywhere,
Yeah.
right? And now it makes the XDR capabilities of saying, or SIM capabilities or whatever, of being able to tell this is the same endpoint over here in this cloud, and that cloud, and this cloud, and this on-premise device, and that on-premise device. It makes that all seamless in our, because we all have the same agent, the same identity.
Yeah.
Right. And it is phenomenal. It is phenomenal.
That's awesome.
Looks like, I think Umbrella is going to be the first one to fully implement the use of that, which would be great. But that's just me predicting based on the engineering. Like, there's nothing, no committed timelines I can give anyone.
That's awesome. That's awesome, man. Um, yeah, starting from the unified clients to device insights, and then talking about the unified ID, I think it just makes more like it just makes sense, right? Because um, we diversified, we complicated things. Now we're trying to simplify them with the unified stuff. So
Yeah.
totally that makes sense. And so for the last few minutes, what would be the call to action? I know I would say just have install SecureX, but what would be your like for the customers? What should they be doing and thinking about as they start exploring SecureX and stuff like that?
My call to action is a couple. One, go learn about SecureX if you don't know about it already. If you're a Cisco security customer, you have access to this. Our goal in life in the SecureX team is to make the security, security in incident responder, so the SOC team, be able to work easier, faster, and better, especially with Cisco products, but not only with Cisco products. So I would say cisco.com/go/SecureX. Right. The other thing I would highly suggest that you do is go take a look at Cisco Secure Client. Go look at that unified agent, load it on a couple of systems in your environment today to test it out, since it is even though it's 5.0, because remember, it's AnyConnect 5.0, we just rebranded it to CSC. It is the first version of CSC out there. So, maybe you want to load it on a couple of systems, test it. We're going to have a maintenance release come out at some point in the near future, but go give it a shot, right? And see if the experience is better. Get used to that cloud interface, and send us feedback. Right in the SecureX UI, there's a give feedback button. You can give me feedback, and I can show you a few right here in my inbox. Really, it comes to a whole group of us, and we read every single one of them, and we take every bit of feedback to heart. So.
That is awesome. That is awesome. I think this is going to be super helpful for our customers to just kind of understand how they can simplify their solution and how they can leverage Cisco security architecture in a better and efficient way. Hey, Aaron, thank you so much for your time today, man. I really appreciate it. I know you're busy.
Yeah.
Thanks for sparing your time. And this has been super helpful. I learned a lot of new things, which I also didn't know. So this is great. And we're gonna keep talking more, and I'm gonna keep bothering you more to kind of provide us update on what's going on in your world, so that it makes
Sure.
a good use of time for everyone, and everyone enjoys it and finds it useful. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Next time we'll pick a shorter topic.
Yeah.
So,
All right. Awesome.
take care.
Thanks, Aaron. Thank
All
you
right.
so much.
All right. Take care, man. Bye.